Hello and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Leanne Hughes, and I'm here to help you design fast, deliver strong without the stress. This episode is kind of like an annual report, just sharing a bit of the highlights, lessons learned from the year, starting with some metrics that I think are important that aren't really official business or accounting type metrics, more like Leanne type metrics that you might use to reflect for your business, or you might even make up your own. And then I'll share a bit more around, just do like a quarter by quarter breakdown on things that I learned, things that I sort of discovered, projects that were pushed out, and a bit more sort of behind the scenes of what goes on in terms of how I think, how I plan, what work I was doing, and how I reflect on that as well. I'm so excited to hear how you do this, how you reflect and get ready for your 2024. You can always send me an email, hello@leannehughes.com. Follow me on Instagram at Leanne Hughes or connect up on LinkedIn. I'm all over the social platforms, so just find me on there. Okay, let's jump in. And I always get excited this time of the year because of Spotify and how they bring out their Wrapped, which is like all the data from what you listened to through the year, how many minutes you listened, what artists, what were the top 5 songs, that type of thing. And even from a podcaster's perspective, you can get into stats in terms of what were your most downloaded episodes. This is obviously a very good time to stop and reflect on the year that was. And when I think of these metrics related to business, we all know the ones that are like our accountant will talk to us about, like your cash flow, your profit, your gross profit, net profit, overheads, all that sort of thing. But I think for me in my business, and because I am a personal brand and my business is really me, there are other metrics that I don't really think about explicitly, but I definitely know that are important to me as a business owner and a facilitator and a consultant and all of that. For this episode, I got a piece of paper and I just wrote down different quarters, went through my calendar, but also wrote down some of my key metrics, which may be surprising. But the first one, and again, this is in no particular order, but number of countries visited or the countries I did visit. One of the biggest things about the work that we do as facilitators is, and it gives us an opportunity to work with different clients all around the world. And we can do that virtually from, I'm recording this from my spare bedroom in Brisbane, Australia, or we can actually step on a plane. And I am so lit up by getting on a plane and just traveling to faraway places, even if it's a domestic flight, only an hour away, that's kind of fun, but just different time zones and running workshops there and learning all about the people in those groups. And so very lucky early this year, traveled to Malaysia and also was in the US twice this year. I'm saying last year already, twice this year, San Francisco, north of that in Sonoma for a conference, and just got back from New York City. I guess one of the biggest fears I had when I left my job in 2019 was never being able to travel internationally again for work. And the opposite has happened. I've gone to some really cool places. So that's a really key metric for me. I think working with clients that I love and clients that I resonate with, when you kick off a business, I'm closing into my 5th year next year. And I do tread this path of accepting work that I'm not too sure that is going to fuel me. But I also think that creates a really good challenge as well. Yeah, I'm in two minds around this. So I do want to work with clients that I love and resonate with, but at the same time, working with clients that you don't love or problems that you're not particularly sure you know how to work with, that is an excellent challenge as well. I don't know if work should always be sausage dogs and butterflies and rainbows and all of that. I think the challenge and the struggle is what keeps us honest and real. And that's where we get most of our growth and learning opportunities. As long as I can still be myself in all those interactions, where I think this metric around clients I love is if I'm struggling in a relationship with a client, it's usually because I'm not able to be myself or I'm masking parts of myself. And so maybe I should change the metric to, I'm not going to use the word authenticity because I think that was like the Webster Dictionary's word of the year, kind of over the word authenticity, but just stepping into who I am and 100% of that. When I'm 95% or even 90% with a client, it's not going to go well. So even on this podcast, I try to really go into 100% Leanne and like just imagine that we're having a coffee or having a drink. This is the stuff I'd say to you, regardless of whether it's being recorded or not. So maybe the metric is, even in our initial scoping conversations with clients, can I be myself? Do I go there? Do I actually say the things that Leanne would typically say? Or am I masking myself because I want to win the work or impress them? Or I don't know. You know what I mean? Hopefully. Okay, another metric is new topics explored or new processes where, again, in an interesting pivot point in my career, I kind of sometimes think I want to just blow up my business and do something completely new. I don't think that's the case. I think I'm on the right path. It's more about what are the topics or what's the area of expertise that I really want to step into. And being a facilitator, being a consultant, you tackle a lot of challenges, but typically things can follow a similar process. And they all really fall down to, I guess, those big buckets of expertise, communication, leadership, resilience, that type of thing. And I know there's different experts in those pockets, but I think a lot of the work we do actually travels across those borders. So that's why I really struggle stepping into an area of expertise, because if you want to solve for innovation, often that's a leadership challenge or it's, a culture thing. These are not segmented things. And that's where I really find that challenge. But in terms of stepping into new topics and new processes, am I solving different things? Because I think once you've worked with clients on particular projects, you kind of like rinse and repeat that. I mean, some people like that, but it's not me. And I know I'm very self-aware that I want to do new things. The people that I met were interesting. And that doesn't mean just clients. I mean, just people in general. Did I meet interesting people this year? Have I built up my network of like really cool people that I enjoy having conversations with, people that I learn from? I meet them in real life as well. I guess we've all learned from 2020. We've seen the stats on travel this year. People are investing more in experiences than they are on things. You can tell that from just going to airports, seeing the price surge of hotels, accommodate, all of that. I'm really just turning a lot of the my virtual friendships into in real life and making that time to do that. That's, again, being a business owner, I have that flexibility. It's my decision. Do I make that choice to do that? So those are a few of my metrics. So what I'm going to do now is just go through each quarter by quarter and just share some of the highlights, maybe some lessons learned. But another activity that I've shared on this podcast previously is doing this activity and also going back and going, what were the gigs that I did not enjoy doing? What were the meetings that I did not look forward to showing up for? So I guess another metric I'd like to add, an unofficial metric for 2024 is, when I woke up today and I looked at my calendar, how excited was I about the day? Was it a 10 out of 10? Like, I can't wait. Usually that involves a boat and saxophones and things like that. Or traveling, right? Like, that's a 10 out of 10 day. Or working, just maybe like opening a conference or hosting a one-day event. I'm just so excited to do that. A 1 out of 10, maybe I've got to have a difficult conversation. Oh, I've got to do some admin work. Like when I wake up in the morning, I see what's being scheduled in. Am I excited about that? I think if I can get over, if you get over 60%, you're totally winning. Totally winning. So maybe that's what I look forward to next year as well. And I'm curious to hear from you as you're listening to this. What are the unofficial metrics that might drive your career and your business leading into 2024? What type of workshops do you want to run? What areas of focus? What type of clients? Where do you want to host them? And that became that theme of where do I want to host a workshop stood out really strong for me in 2023. This whole sort of format of reflecting on each quarter kind of reminds me of when I was working internally for a global mining company, and we'd get to the end of year performance review, and I was leading the process for our company, but I wasn't role modeling the right thing and taking notes and collecting evidence all through the year. So what I had to do is like check my email and my calendar invites to see what did I actually achieve in the year. So I've done the same thing as I reflect on this year. So in quarter one, I kicked up the year thinking, January the 1st, I started writing my book, The 2-Hour Workshop Blueprint. And I knew that I was speaking at a conference in Sonoma. My friend Andy Storch hosts the Talent Management Development Think Tank Conference. He invited me to speak over there. I accepted. So I flew over in February, but I said to myself, I cannot go to this conference without a book. I must have a book. I blocked off the first 3 weeks of January and I just got into deep work of just collecting everything I'd done about workshops. The hardest part about writing a book is actually getting a real focus point. I sort of was in between, do I write the workshop playbook, which would be super general? Do I write a book on how to run a lunch and learn, which is extremely specific, and I can still do that off the back of the 2-Hour Workshop Blueprint. But I thought the 2-Hour Workshop was it was specific in terms of it solved a very specific problem, but also if you can run a 2-hour workshop, you can run an all-day workshop, you can run a 2-day workshop, based off the principles in the book. And I think once I had that title and scope, it became very clear and obvious in terms of what would go in the book and what went out. Yeah, I've spoken about the book process quite a bit on the podcast, so I won't go too much into that. But that really was the focus of January, was getting that out, getting just words on a page, getting the ideas out, creating some sort of format. And the exciting part was actually when I was in California, in Sonoma, the morning, I was about to get a coffee with Andy and my books had arrived, version 1, right? And then to see people take the book off, like at the conference, just like grab the book, and that was amazing. Even though it's a very early version and probably I don't want it out there, it validated the idea and it gave me momentum to really launch it later on that year. I'm not going to talk about every single workshop I ran, but what I really did enjoy was partnering with Tom Scantlebury. He's been a guest on this podcast previously. And we did some workshops down the Gold Coast all about strengths-based leadership. And that was really fun. Did actually quite a few of those, maybe 3 different sessions on strengths-based leadership for different teams. Really nice way to kick off the year and start the year on a really positive note, positive psychology, leaning into your strengths, getting that self-awareness. And I definitely think there's like seasons for things. And yeah, you could run a strength session in August. Maybe that makes sense in the Northern Hemisphere, but I think strategy, strengths, any type of like ideating, divergent thinking type of activity in a Q1 of a year is a good idea. Another highlight was actually seeing Jimmy Carr, the comedian, play in Brisbane. Tell his jokes. I really love and recommend his book, but he just really talks about the work ethic. And we often see people on stage and think, wow, they're so natural and this came easy to them. But the amount of gigs and the amount of miles traveled by Jimmy, I think in a year, I'm just going to pull this. I don't know how accurate this was, but there's 365 days in a year. And I think he was on the road for 280, 290 of them, or some huge amount, 2 or 3 gigs a night, driving all around the UK when he was just starting. And so it really hones in that point of, yes, you can listen to this podcast, you can read the books, but it's all about getting time on your feet, reflecting on your practice, and that is how you improve. You just have to get out into the ring. So that was Q1. I also launched a few different things. I got the Leanne on Demand voice note coaching, did quite a bit of that. So that's a 30-day voice note coaching program where we connect on WhatsApp. For 30 days, you get unlimited access to me and we voice note each other about sort of podcasts or whatever you want to build, your workshops, your business, your marketing. I really love that. And then I introduced Leanne's Red Carpet Experience as well, which was, I just started ideating what would be really helpful for someone. What I've learned more than ever this year is the importance of having to fall in love with the process. This started with the book. It's like when I was stuck with the book, I thought, how do I get myself out of this? How do I make myself fall in love with it again? And that usually involved taking myself to a cafe, ordering some great food, getting out in beautiful weather, and just moving and shifting the environment made me love it. And I thought, how can we create this for someone else? Make it a red carpet experience. Have champagne, have a long lunch, have a great coffee, get the Post-it notes, get into that. And I think, let's just make it fun for ourselves. I just wanted to shout out to Joe that flew over from New Zealand for that. It was just incredible hanging out with you. And Zaretta also ran that virtually with her and got a few more red carpet experiences. It seems that they come through, again, quite a few booked for the end of the year and then for the beginning of the year. So I think it's a nice way to either bookend as you might be one of those people that wants to just start just hit it in January. So you're keen to get that in this year. Or you might be someone in Q1, you've got your ideas and you just want to land them and get them out there. And I think I got the idea of that by running a strategy session for a legal practice. They'd booked a beautiful hotel sort of boardroom. And by lunchtime, I thought, I think we need just some different energy. So we went up to the rooftop bar and we sat there, and the conversations that emerged were incredible. And from that, I realized, back to my thing about place, this is also related to falling back in love with the experiences. How do you shift that environment? And so fast forward a few quarters, in Q3 this year, when I flew to Perth, I just said, I'm only going to run experiences off rooftops. So that is going to continue. That is a good insight. That's going to continue. And luckily we have the climate in Australia to mostly get away with that all through the year. Okay, Q2. So going from April through to June of 2023, highlight definitely would be getting to run a workshop with my dad. How crazy is that? And how cool is that? So dad actually has retired, which makes him like a free agent, but he's still involved. He's in asset management. So we spoke at the Asset Management Conference in Sydney. We ran a workshop together. It was all about hit the ground running, how to get your contractors up to speed really quickly when they're at various sites, work sites. So we talked about sort of that onboarding process and made it really interactive. And I guess not many people can say that they've done that. And so, yeah, that was really fun. Definitely a highlight. I did a lot of this Q2 was really about virtual. I went, Q1 was a lot of in-person workshops. Q2 was a lot of behind the scenes, working with global audiences, but doing a series of webinars and mainly international. I launched a series of different webinars. So one was how to host explosive group workshops. And from time to time, I might actually bring these back. So last year, I did webinars on how to create a private podcast, how to run a group coaching program. And what I tend to do is, and my friend Brendan gave me this feedback, he's like, Leanne, why don't you launch these again? Because because I always do like a one-off and then I think, oh yeah, that's done. Now let's move to a new topic. But there's like a whole back series of webinars that I might start bringing back maybe on a monthly basis next year. I'll think about it. If you are interested, just jump on the mailing list, leannehughes.com/subscribe. I can't believe I didn't kick off Q2 with this, but yeah, I actually launched my book in Q2 at the end of May. And it was really hard actually, just like doing that final step. I think you get it so far and you can continually iterate it. You can just go on and on and on. And I think many people do this and they haven't released their books into the world because they want to kind of get it perfect. And even now when I look at the book, I'm like, oh, there's actually many things that I would change about it. But at some point you just have to hit go. It's very similar with our workshop design. I know that in the early days, I would continue iterating my slides until up until the moment, like the night before, the morning of it, changing, tweaking things. But at a point, you've just got to stop. And like Seth Godin would say, you've got to get it shipped, like ship it. The podcast, I brought the podcast back, first time facilitated for a limited season run. And like I explained on a previous episode recently, I don't know, I'm going maybe monthly do an episode, but I will let this sort of, it won't be as consistent as weekly because I want to move on to new things. And I don't really know what that is yet, but that's why I'm doing this reflection piece in terms of what really lit me up. What do I enjoy? What I did enjoy was, again, Brendan, I mentioned him before, Brendan Baker, he's been a guest on this podcast. Partnering with him, what I really miss about working internally is the team dynamics, even the drama sometimes, but just having a sounding board at your level that you can talk to about certain things. And so Brendan brought me in for a consulting gig, sort of less workshops and more sort of advisory, which I really enjoyed. And so when I look into next year, I really want to build up the sort of behind the scenes support for clients. That's why I love the red carpet experience. It's why I love Leanne on Demand. Sometimes I do like running workshops, but I also like helping other people create ideas too. I think when I move my methodology in terms of my delivery to more keynote speaking, these webinars that I ran for global companies were keynote speeches, but they were very contextualized to the company that I was working for. And I think it's time for me to put sort of a stake in the ground and really create a killer keynote speech. There's a book I'm reading, it's called The Referable Speaker. And they said the best thing, obviously, the best thing you can do is craft a referable speech. So people like love it, they talk about it, they share about it. It's memorable and you've rehearsed it, right? It's not like you've just created this keynote speech and you're delivering a one-off. You want to, again, through that time on your feet, like what Jimmy Carr was talking about, rehearsing it, blocking it, getting the stories right, getting the humor right, all of that, getting a signature move. That's what they talk about in that book. That's what I really want to work on for next year. I was brought back, so twice this year for one of my favorite clients, a company called Orion. They do payroll technology for companies across Australia. And the challenge, I've just come back from delivering a session with them last week. That was the third one. And the challenge with that is you always have to keep reinventing yourself. And that's why I like it, because sometimes I guess as facilitators, we can get used to running our favorite icebreakers and our favorite activities. But once you've done that, and you call back a second, third, fourth time, you have to reinvent yourself and find new things. So that keeps me on my toes. Q2, I also went to Thailand. I ran a webinar from there, which was fun, except for when the electricity went out. But the irony was I was teaching people all about like preparing in virtual workshops. And so the good news is I had 2 Zoom producers on that. So shout out to my friend Jan in the Philippines. He's been producing my masterclasses on Zoom since 2020 now. And to have that backup and support is incredible. So that was a really big quarter with the book. And a lot of the focus was on the book release, the marketing of that, getting on podcasts, the mailing list, launching it, doing a series of webinars, getting the reviews in. I still need to get more reviews for Amazon. So if you haven't reviewed the 2-hour workshop blueprint yet on Amazon, please do that. I'd love to hit 100. I'm currently at 75, so 25 more to go before it's viewed as legitimate on Amazon. So that is something I need to keep working on. But yeah, I mean, and the sense of relief of doing that and being an author is incredible, and having a book. And honestly, I just want to write another one now. In whatever new direction. So the book, the 2-hour workshop blueprint, was a legacy project, really about capturing everything I've learned on this podcast and over the years of workshopping. And I think I'm ready to step into like Leanne 2.0, whatever that is. And I think the new book will have to launch that new direction. And how am I discovering that new direction? I'm using conversations and content, like creating content like this, just to get me out of my own mind and just to riff and see what's landing. Okay, so that was Q2, big one. Q3,
I turned 40 and that was big too. And I ended up being more of a party animal this quarter, still working. And so I coined this phrase, HIIP, a high intensity interval performer. I realized this is my work style. Like there's a lot of people that are consistent out there and just do like they have this routine and they're so good every single day. Not me. And I think that's okay. But I really kind of over-indexed on the having a lot of fun part of Q3, doing a lot of travel, a lot of in-person events. Ended up hosting my second business breakfast. This is for clients and also people like sort of within my network, within like senior leadership positions. So I want to do more of those. I might actually switch it from breakfast to more of an afternoon sundowner networking type of activity. I ran in Q3, interestingly enough, ran a lot of webinars on virtual presentation skills again. So this is stuff that's still coming out of COVID and just getting better at running these and how to make virtual sessions more engaging. So yeah, clients all around the world wanted that. It was also the first time, shout out to the Harcourts Academy in Brisbane. They hired me for my first ever 2-hour workshop blueprint workshop. So it was a 2-hour workshop based on the book. And that was the first time where I've ever actually like to go in and then deliver all of your own IP and all of your thinking, and to hear people using your framework and your ideas was the most amazing thing. I mean, I took that workshop over to New York. I've run 2-hour workshops for clients virtually as well. And it's so funny. Like, I know it sounds completely obvious now, but when I wrote the book, the 2-hour workshop blueprint, I actually wasn't expecting for people to book me for 2-hour workshops. But I love that. Like 2-hour workshop, I think is the perfect format because you can go in, you can do a few things, and then it's a half day. It's fun. People have time. It's not a massive stretch out of their day to come along as well. And it's really amazing the kind of conversations and the depth you can get into in a 2-hour workshop. So such a fan of that. And if I only ever got hired for 2-hour workshops, I don't know. That's a pretty good life. That's a pretty good life. I also went to Hobart based on my, who do I want to be? I want to be a keynote speaker. So I went to Hobart. This was a 4-day event on how to do that, on how to be a world-class speaker. And I've done podcast episodes about that experience. What has not happened is I haven't come home and actually taken action. I think that's okay because I got stuck into delivery. And like I said, there's times and seasons for things. I have the notes. I know what I need to do. And this time between now and sort of end of January, this is like my peak time. This is where, the sun gets it's bright at 3:45 in the morning. I'm up early. I'm out running. This is it for me. So no pressure on myself, but yeah, it's where ideas sort of land for me is this time of year. So I'm cool with that. I also flew down to see Dr. Jason Fox and Michael Bungay-Stanier speak in Melbourne. That was a really great night to, again, just trying to turn a lot of my virtual friendships and really invest in people and see them in person. It is hard, because you got to take that time, but I think it's always worth it. I've never, ever regretted doing that and investing the time. It was also, I got invited to a corporate box for the AFL, and I realized I just felt totally in my zone of genius. And I think what I'm inquiring about next year is how do I get more into sport, live events, and mix that with media and workshops. What's the Venn diagram there that I can bring into that? Because that just fuels me up. That would be an 11 out of 10 day if I could look at my calendar and I'm like, oh, Leanne's going to an event. She's going to be interviewing so-and-so at the game. Whoa, best ever. So that was good insight. And 40 has been pretty fun, to be honest. Okay, moving on to Q4. And I guess this is really, this episode is entirely self-absorbed, but I hope it gives you some sort of interesting insight into, behind the scenes of a business. And I'm also happy to answer questions if you've got them following this in terms of planning or how I navigate my days or whatever you're interested in. Let me know. And I'm happy to do some episodes or content based on that. But I think Q4 was exciting. I actually bought a new car, and it sounds lame, but I remember getting into my Toyota thinking, I just don't feel aligned in this. And I think this year has really been about where do I feel comfortable? Back to how do I be 100% Leanne, not 95 or 90%? How do I get 100%? I just walking to the car just did not feel right. It's not a bad car. It's kind of cute. It's not even that old. It's maybe 2016. It's reliable. It's reliable at sound, but that's not me. That's not my brand. And I don't think I've shared this, but I got a number plate on my car. The number plate is the word Bangkok, as in the city Bangkok. And I get asked why Bangkok? Why is that my number plate? And it's because, first of all, I love going to Bangkok. I've been every year apart from 2020 for the last maybe 10 plus years. So every year go there, stay at the same hotel, run at Lumpini Park, go to Chatuchak markets, eat great food, go to rooftop bars. The second reason is because it reflects my values. So Bangkok is a city that is unpredictable, it's fast, it's crazy, it's hectic, but somehow it just works. And I think that reflects who I am. In my Gallup Clifton Strengths Finder, it said, like, I have ideation number 1, and it said, just don't share your process. Your process is messy. And so it's interesting that I wrote a book about my process, because I actually cleaned it up a lot. And I needed to do that for my own sanity, to be honest. Actually, it is nice to have a process to follow sometimes, but even I will break my own blueprint just to do things a bit differently. So I'm curious, like, what is your spirit city, or what is your spirit place? But I got that number plate. And since I was a kid, I've just loved convertibles. A boss at my old company, this is back when I was 25, lent me his Porsche convertible for the week, and had a total blast in that, just the feeling of the top down. And this car, I've got to say, it's a mental health car, without even exaggerating. I feel like I've got 2 cars. I've got the kind of Clark Kent car, which is like the top is up. The second I take that roof down, it is Superman. I feel invincible. So I could wake up and maybe be looking at my calendar thinking, oh, I've got a 3 out of 10 day today. But then I go grab a coffee, I put the top down, I put on some music. It is a nightclub in the car. I feel invincible. And this is another reason, like, falling in love with the process, just top down spaciousness, ideas, like, all of it is like, it was a big thing for me to do that, because I didn't think, usually I am very conservative with where I allocate resources and money. And I think just turning 40, you kind of have that, there's a sense of like, oh, I'm not going to be here forever. So when do you get the good car? When do you get the car that you love? And I thought I'd just do it. My most downloaded episode this year was my episode around my 40th birthday and the lessons that I've learned. And one of those is like just remembering every day we're all going to die. So life is a really interesting challenge where you're navigating like what are the short-term wins versus the long-term. But the car, like, best thing ever, no regrets. It's turning every day into at least a 5 out of 10 now. The other thing that's happened is more people sort of booking in to pick my brain. So I don't know if this is like, again, a Q4 thing or a season in our lives where we're all looking at what is the next level for me? What is my next version of me? Certainly is that for me. And I think because I'm on that path, like navigating it, I'm talking to coaches, I'm booking people's brains, I'm getting out there, making sure I'm having conversations, journaling a lot, paying attention to where I feel aligned and where I feel most like myself. And so I guess people see that and sense that, and then they're maybe picking my brain to see like what I'm doing, what exercises I'm doing to get some clarity on where I'm going. And I still have that balance of working with corporate clients and getting stuck into meaty challenges, but also working with individuals like yourself, if you're listening, founders, people in their careers that are just want to live a bigger life, is what I'd say, and just live their potential, whatever that looks like. Has been very fueling in Q4. New York City was definitely the highlight of this one. I can't believe that I ran a workshop in New York City. The client I was working with, I worked with them virtually for a few years. They are wonderful people, healthcare. They've had a really tough time, and to come in and to bring some energy and to energize their staff and help them connect with each other and just have those conversations was pretty cool. And then to have like 4 days afterwards to be there for New York City Marathon Week and attend some of the shakeout runs that Nike held, that New Balance held, to go to Central Park, to see some Broadway shows. Like that is it. And I think one of my polls on the Flipchart Facebook group was, do you see yourself as a multi-potentialite? And I think it was an overwhelming 90% of people said yes. I feel like it asks the question, do you enjoy traveling, in the flip chart? And I'd say there would be like an overwhelming majority of people. We are so lucky that we have roles where we can get paid to share our message with people globally, whether that's virtually or in person. I think that is, for me, is the highlight of the work that we do, is having the opportunity to meet people from all walks of life. Just from those conversations and encounters, you learn so much more as well. I never take that for granted. And if you're listening, you might be in Australia, but you might be somewhere else. And thank you so much for taking with me on your commute to work, on your dog walk, while you're cooking dinner. It really means a lot. And so in terms of this year, I think, how would I describe this year in a word? I think it would be that phrase I coined at the HIP, a high intensity interval performer. I used to resist that. I used to try to be consistent. And now I've just gone into, it's okay. It's okay if I wake up on a Tuesday morning and things aren't rolling. Like, what else can I do? And just not putting that pressure on myself to be so consistent. There's elements of my life where I have to be. So fitness is one where that I have to be. If I don't exercise in the morning, I just can't do anything. So that's one element of my life. But in terms of work, I've come to the conclusion that the stuff that we do is highly creative. When you're designing a workshop, when you're formulating a speech, when you're doing marketing, these are really, really creative endeavors. This content itself, I wanted to create this episode a few days ago, and I just couldn't get into it. So I gave myself the grace and said, all right, there'll be a time when this is ready. And today I had that space. And so here it is. I think HIP was the word of last year. I think was word of 2023 for me, high intensity interval performer. What would I like it to be in 2024? Maybe all in. I don't know if that's very similar to this year, but all in terms of like 100%, like not skirting around or not just being 100% of who I am, like all in is what I'm thinking at the moment. Yeah, I'd love to hear what your word is, if you're thinking about that, if any of this has resonated with you, and how has your year been as well. Let me know how you choose to reflect on the year that was. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast, and hope you have a wonderful and relaxing end of year and a very exciting and opportunity-filled 2024.